My guest today is Todd Cochrane. He is the CEO of RawVoice and also the creator of the PowerPress Blueberry plugin for your WordPress website. Want to welcome today Mr. Todd Cochrane. Todd, welcome to the show today. Thank you so much for joining us.
Hey, thanks for having me on. And I have to give credit where credit's due. The actual coder is Angelo Mendato. I'm just one of the team members here at RawVoice/Blueberry, and of course we are as a team, the creators of PowerPress. But thanks for having me on. Definitely appreciate it.
Thank you so much for being here. I got to tell you, we've been podcasting now for almost 5 years. PowerPress has been a huge part of what's been going on here at the TeacherCast network and educational broadcasting. Talk to us a little bit about what PowerPress is and how it can help out a podcaster.
Well, you know, when we started podcasting, Laurel and I started podcasting 10 years ago, there really was no solution. We were either hand coding RSS feeds, or we were really kind of making it up as we went. And then about a year into the scene when WordPress, or maybe 2 years into the scene when WordPress got popular, a gentleman made a plugin called PodPress, and a huge number of the podcasting community migrated to that particular plugin to use to basically help power their podcast. But what started happening was that plugin really wasn't keeping up with the times. It wasn't being updated very often, so we decided to develop our own plugin for WordPress. And I don't even know how many years now that the plugin's been available, but around 40,000 podcasters use the plugin to power their podcast, and it really does a couple of things. The first and most primary point is give you a podcast or iTunes compliant RSS feed that's dedicated, that you can use to submit to iTunes or any of the other syndication networks. And then it also allows you to have a player on your website, both audio and video. It's an HTML5 player, and it allows you to do a whole bunch of other stuff. It's if you have more than one show on your network, or if you do audio and video and you want 2 different feeds, you can create either channels or categories. So there's really it's pretty feature rich, and it can be actually a little overwhelming for a new podcaster. So a couple of years ago, we introduced a simple mode that allows a new podcaster to very quickly, with 3 steps, get up and running and get their basically full control of their podcast on their website. I like to say that we've made it easier for podcasters through WordPress plus PowerPress, through our Blueberry podcast hosting, allows a podcaster to focus on creating content, and then when they're ready to publish their episode, they go up on their blog, they write their blog post, they upload their media directly right on the website. They don't have to go to a third-party website and publish. I call it post, upload, publish. It's a 3-step process, and we really try to make it so that podcasters are in control and build their brand, and that's very important to us. It's a core element of our company's business.
And that idea of having control of your content, of your website, of your feed, I mean, that's one of those things that every podcaster needs. When you're looking at creating a post in WordPress, there's so many different things that you want to have control over. What's the blog post title? What's the Google Analytics title look like? And those are completely different than possibly what is the title in iTunes. Generally, with your blog post feed, I like to leave that as a question, like learn how to, or it's some kind of a fishing pole that kind of gets people. All of our stuff is big on Twitter. I like to say learn how to or find out whatever. But generally, if you write a post that says learn how to do da-da-da-da-da, there's just not enough characters in iTunes to see all of that information.
Right.
And so that's why I'm really, really excited that not too long ago you guys came out with the Podcasting Seo. And I know you're going to show us this in a demo in a few seconds here, but you can learn how to create a post using Blueberry PowerPress and turn that into Blueberry PowerPress. 2 words, simple SEO. If I'm going to iTunes, I can connect with that. Tell us a little bit about Podcasting SEO. What are your thoughts on all of that?
Well, there's different ways to be found, and when you're doing a Google search, you want Google to come in and look at that rich metadata in your blog post. The title is very important. The information that's in that blog post is going to get indexed, and hopefully you'll rank high enough in the search end results so that it's all relative. But when it comes to discovery of a podcast in a podcast directory on iTunes, or even the multitudes of other places you can find content today, those discovery features are not as rich in those sites. So you have to be a little more focused on trying to be found. And we just made a few tweaks with the podcast SEO features to allow you to have a different title that would, from what would show up on your blog post, as what would be in your RSS feed. So not only does it differentiate yourself a little bit, but it also gives you the ability to be easily found in iTunes. Now, iTunes doesn't use keywords anymore. So you can just basically, if you're using keywords and you're thinking that's helping you for iTunes, well, it isn't. That's been out of their system for a while. So it's really the title and the subtitle that are key to being found, or having an episode or even your show found in iTunes.
Well, take me through what it takes to create a good title, because some people put down, for instance, TeacherCast podcast #1, and then they have the title. And some people put the title and then TeacherCast podcast #1. I've always put this show number at the end, again, because you only have so many characters to look at. Even when you're looking at the iTunes podcasting app, you don't want to look at a number first. You want to actually see what it is. Does iTunes care what direction that is? Is there a reason behind why we would want to have a title certain things? And comment a little bit on what a subtitle is.
Well, I've been under the impression over the past couple of years that you should have your, I try to make it easy so that when someone sees my listing on any directory or any place my podcast is found, that they see the sequence. My show is very timely. It has, when it comes out, I want people to know that's the latest edition. Some directories will arrange your stuff alphabetically. You may have to end up a new episode at the bottom. I've always used, and again, there's 25 different ways to spin this, and I'm not here to say one way is better than the other. I just tell you what I do. For my Geek News Central show, I put GNC, I put a space, I put a £, I put the episode number, then I put the title to the show. I've done that for years. Matter of fact, in the early days, there was actually a sequence you should have used, because the technology wasn't as rich. I used to do like GNC-2015-04-34.mp3 for my media file name, and I'd actually use that in my show title. I don't do that any longer, but I put the sequence number close. My goal is more of the ability for people to know, yep, that's the latest episode, that's the one I want to watch. And then I use the additional part of the title of the show to make sure that they're finding they're getting the topic and they know where it has came from. The subtitle itself is just basically that quick description about what that episode's about, so that you can use some just a good description is really what a subtitle is. So that's been my way of doing it. Again, one way over the other is not better. There's lots of folks have done a lot of deep studies on exactly how you should title your show. My audience finds me on my website. I'm not so worried about them finding me on iTunes, largely because I started off as a blogger, and I've continued to put content up on the website. So there's 13,000 articles on Geek News Central with 1,022 episodes of the podcast. So I get a huge amount of traffic that's finding me strictly from Google coming to the website on a daily basis, and I pick listeners up that way. So it depends on how you're trying to be found. I already had an established presence, so I already had a certain amount of web traffic. So for me, them finding me at Geek News Central is the key. I drive them to iTunes. If I get found on iTunes, that's great, but it's not the absolute focus.
Well, let's take a look here. Your website can be found over at Geek News Central. Let me bring it up. Here's, of course, your website, newmediashow.com, which is a fantastic show, and you guys run live every Saturday morning, I believe?
Yeah, we just got done about 15 minutes ago with Rick Calvert from the New Media Expo, and we had an absolute great guest on, Bob Heil from Heil Sound. Of course, they are the makers of the PR40 microphone that so many podcasters use.
And then over here at Geek News Central. Now, I'm noticing here, I know you're going to walk us through this as a demo, but we see the audio file here. We also see the links to putting the podcast in and the subscribe, and then we have the video down here. Why don't you do us a favor, Todd? Can you show us a demonstration of how to put a podcast blog post together?
Sure. Okay, so what we see here is a typical WordPress post, and I think everyone that has done any blogging whatsoever will kind of understand what this interface is. But as I was talking about earlier, at the very top here, and I'll just highlight this, you can see that this is for my Geek News Central podcast. This is the last episode I did. GNC, it was episode number 1022, and I talk about time to diversify, and basically then below, I have an introduction to the show talking about, a little bit about some of the things that are going to be on there. I have a link to what's our insider program. I have a direct link on the website that I actually physically put in where they can click on and download as well. Now, this is something here most people say, well, what is that? I don't know what you've done there. What I've done is I can change on my website exactly what the my sponsor messages through a function within PHP. So that little tag auto inserts this data here for my sponsors. And if anybody wants to know how to do this, they can email me at geeknews@gmail.com, and I'd be happy to share with you how I do that little trick by putting this tag in right here that says show sponsor. It's just a function of a PHP that makes it real easy to auto post something within every blog post, and you can update every blog post on your WordPress site with just using this little tag. It's very, very handy. But you also see here that I have a more button. Now, my show is unique because I do a lot of articles. I talk a lot about different things, and I was getting penalized by Google for having too many links on my website without a lot of context. So we developed a plugin. It basically, and this is the raw data of all that information there, so you can kind of see that it looks like a link farm. So what we did is we built a plugin that basically anything below this more line, and that's implemented by using and again, this is more than most podcaster will ever need to do. This little WordPress tag is that it adds no follow links to all of these links that are going to go in this blog post when it's published. And that got me out of the penalty box with Google. So it's good having show notes, but I think the most important thing is to have a lot of context to it. And that way Google will find you. I see podcasters today, they don't have very much detail in their show notes, and it really impacts them. I was actually in a hurry publishing this show, so this is one of my, I would say, least good examples of basically putting good show notes together. You should have a little more context here up at the beginning. But once you get your blog post done, the way we've got it set up in WordPress is we've got this ability in here to upload media. And I'm using the Blueberry podcast hosting service, and when that's activated within PowerPress, and this is the beauty, and I think this is the important thing that podcasters need to understand, is all I do to upload media is I basically click upload new media, and I can drag and drop, or I can actually go to my desktop where I have my episodes, and let's see if I can find the directory here. I'm normally not as full screen as we're doing today, so I go to my episodes, and all I have to do is just click one of these, and I'll say open, and it'll start uploading. And when the file's done uploading, it'll close. The uploader will close, and of course I'm not actually doing that, but this will automatically collapse, and the media URL will show up here. And all you do is then hit verify, and you can hit publish. Now, as an example, here's my latest episode that I uploaded right in my blog post. And once that's done, I again post, upload, and then publish. That's really the beauty of this. Now, if I want to do talk about some of these SEO features, if I want to do a custom episode title for this feed, I can do a custom episode title. I can actually write a new title. In this particular episode, I did not do that. As well, down here is I can write a unique iTunes subtitle. Now, here's a little trick too. On an episode basis, you can actually kind of trick the system a little bit by putting something in here other than the actual author's name. So you may want to say, or let's say Todd talks about expansion. Anyway, you know, you guys get the hint here. Todd talks about expansion, and I can't. Of the podcast. So what that will actually show up in that specific episode is, instead of showing my name for that episode, it'll show this, and it'll just give me a little bit more searchability. And again, this is maybe even a bad example of saying that. You can use a slogan or portions of the episode title. So really, these three elements, these three additional elements, the custom episode title, the iTunes subtitle, and the iTunes author, are all optional. Now, for a new podcaster, all this stuff will not be enabled. What you'll see as a new podcaster, you'll see about to where it says this poster image. You'll see everything above that. I'm using a lot of the features of PowerPress, so this looks very complicated. But if you're looking at the screen where it says poster image, you just think from there up is what's normally seen by a normal podcaster. And you know, if you look at PowerPress itself, and we'll go down to the PowerPress menu, I have activated within the system a lot of features. And the reason I do is because I do an audio, I do a video podcast, I have an additional podcaster that podcasts on the same website, plus I'm using WordPress multi-site, so I can basically, I've got all my shows under one configuration. But for the new podcasters coming in, you're just going to want to make sure that your podcast is set to simple mode. And to be able to get set up, to get quickly set up in the system, this is the best way to do it. We've got it so you can set up the audio, you put in your description. Actually, this iTunes subscribe URL will come after you publish your first episode, so that comes later. But you can put your subtitle, your program summary, talk about the categories that your shows are going to be in, whether it's explicit or not, your email address, links to your iTunes image art, which is now 3,000 by 3,000 is the maximum size versus 1,400 by 1,400. And then we basically walk you through. This is the basic information. Step 2, we help you create a blog post. Step 3, submit your feed to WordPress. But going back to the advanced mode, and again, use the simple mode if you're brand new and you want to just get up and get started really, really fast. That's what we've made it there for you so that you don't get confused. But this baby has got a lot of meat to it. So if you're in the advanced section, the basic settings can be pretty complicated. There can be a lot of options here to pick. And I would tell a new podcaster that they should go through and take time and play with this a little bit and see exactly what it looks like on their website with an episode published, how it's going to look in your site design, all that information. So the podcast entry box has got info, and then we've got to tie into the service and statistics. So if you want to get free basic stats with us, or if you even want to be part of our media hosting effort, you can click here to configure that. And that's basically linking your service account over at blueberry.com. If you're using a redirect service from a third party, you can put that in there. I leave that in there strictly as an example. Once you link the account, you really don't need to have that redirect URL actually in there. But if you're using someone else's stat service, you can actually add a redirect to the system. I think more importantly, though, is this section on the media appearance where you're looking at the media players, where you want it to be displayed. I choose to have my media players below the page content. I want the media links. I want the player. All these options, again, are things that you can go through and really modify to make it look the best on your particular web page. I don't enhance feeds on my own show, And I also use some additional, you can see here, I've got a lot of stuff going on here. Normally, a single podcaster would have one entry. And this is really, I shouldn't have used my site as a demo site because I've got all this extra stuff added. But this is the link that actually is to my main video feed, and this is the link to my audio feed. So mine are a little different because when I started podcasting, I was on a different platform. And I wanted to carry over my URL without changing anything, so I did some special changes by using a static feed plugin to make my feeds static. But normally this would be a little bit different of a URL, but the main thing is this is where you go in the plugin to find your podcast feed, to basically submit to iTunes. This is what you would submit to iTunes. Now, as far as iTunes itself goes, we've got the ability here to upload your album art. Again, some of the same information that was on that other page with the iTunes subtitles, summary, and so forth. And then again, the artwork upload. And there's a lot here. But again, if you're someone that is brand new, please use the simple setting. Switch to the simple mode, and that'll get you up and running very, very quickly. And then you can dig in a little deeper and make these additional changes. If we talk about this podcasting SEO just a little bit, I've implemented just a few things within this. So on the episode title, I can specify a custom episode title for the podcast feed, and then the feed episode title replaces the post title. So basically that, if I had entered in that previous page that I showed you, if I had actually entered a new episode, that would have replaced the episode title that was in the RSS feed. I also append the show title. So it's basically going to look just like this. As you make these changes here, you'll notice that this section here actually changes. You can see what it's going to look like in the RSS feed. So, if I want to remove the show title, I just take that off. It takes it off the actual area. But again, what I have chosen to do is to append Geek News Central on the end of it, and I've got a feed episode title that I can custom write. Now, if you forget to write that custom title, we put logic in there to basically set you up so that it just takes the normal blog post title. I've also got the schema.org function set, and that just adds microdata to the audio and video objects to allow you to be found a little bit easier on the media side through the search engines. Don't even ask me to try to explain that in detail. We've got a video up on powerpresspodcast.com that talks about what these exactly mean and do. Angelo is in charge of putting that together. But also on iTunes SEO guidance, I've enabled and highlighted features that help with iTunes SEO. So it basically allows me to have a separate subtitle field, a separate author field, and enables enhanced iTunes summary feature by default. So it kind of overrides some of the default settings on how it goes into the RSS feed. But I think one of the things that a lot of podcasters also need to pay attention to is the player that's on their website. I'm using the Media Element JS audio player that's delivered by the folks from WordPress as my audio player. But if I want to choose a different audio player, I can do so. And we give you a couple of options here. I'm very much telling people do not use the Flash player that we have. We still include it because a few of our users want it, but Flash players don't work on mobile devices, on iOS mobile devices. So pick an HTML5 player to put on your website and configure it so that it works good. I know I went fast and quick here, but I think the most important thing that I wanted to share with folks today in our workflow, my team is made up of podcasters. Time is valuable. We want to focus on creating content. So again, we want you to be able to post, then we want you to be able to upload, and then we want you to be able to publish. And you can do that real easy. Again, if you're using our hosting service, you can use any hosting service. You don't have to use ours, But if you love the plugin, we love it when you support support us by using our hosting services. And I guarantee you that we're going to save you time, and time is worth a lot of money. So we make that time value proposition to you just by not having to go to another site and do a whole bunch of stuff and then come back to your site and cut and paste. We make it easy right here to do this. And it's really, that magic happens right there by being able to upload your media right within the actual site. So if I actually did this beat test and I selected this file, you'll see how it auto-filled there, and I can verify the URL, boom, it's ready. So you can actually upload media into the system and have it basically sitting there for publishing at a later date.
You know, Todd, I've been using the PowerPress plugin for quite some time, and I have to tell you, in the last 3 minutes, I probably learned about 10 new things. It is fantastic. Let me throw a couple of questions at you while you're on this screen, because many people listening to this show might be new to WordPress and might be new to podcasting. We know that when you go over to, say, featured image or add media, you're actually taking a file and putting it in your WordPress website. But am I correct in saying that if you hook up through the Blueberry media and you click on that upload, that's not going into your website, that's going into your Blueberry hosting? Is that correct?
This is correct. When in this button will not show up. That little upload box will not show up, or this right here. If you click on that, that loads the same box, that blue bar. When you upload this, this uploads to the Blueberry hosting platform. And when it's up here at the top, in this top section, it's basically that media is still in purgatory. It hasn't been put to the CDN. So you can recreate the media, upload it, and then come back a couple of days later and publish it. Or if you're just uploading and publishing at the same time, like I said, it will upload, and then as soon as the upload is done, this window will collapse automatically, and that media file will be pasted in there and ready to go.
Now, I'm switching over here to look at your website, and I'm noticing that you have the audio and a video. Now, are you inside of WordPress uploading your audio and uploading your video, or is that a YouTube embed of somehow, and how does all that work as a combined deal?
No, that is uploaded right through that same uploader.
So you're doing it twice.
So that's a video that's sitting over on the Blueberry server right now, and basically it's being served by our CDN. And
so, but that's two separate uploads, right? You've uploaded the audio and then you've uploaded the video.
Yeah, I have, correct.
Excellent. Okay. There's a ton of things, and the one thing I really can't stress enough, which I know you said, this is going to be used by beginners, and this is also used by professional expert podcasters. I know with TeacherCast, we've got a network set up with about 6 or 7 shows, and I'm going to even use a word that Todd didn't use. I have my PowerPress set up with something called category podcasting. Right. So I've got a different feed for every single show, but on top of that, I've also got the main feed. So my main feed is /podcast, I believe. And then I broke that off to /podcast, /teachercast, /educational broadcasting, / so that way if you are doing a number of shows, or if you're a school district out there that wants to get an individual feed for each of their school district shows or school building shows, the possibilities here, Todd, really are endless.
And one thing and I'm using the channels feature of the site. So what that allows me to do is I can put, and actually I go a little bit more extreme. So I have an audio file, I have a video file, and then I can also upload a mobile video file and an HD video. So I actually have, I publish 4 pieces of media within a single blog post, which gives me 4 separate feeds. Now, most people are like, oh my God, you're killing me here. So let's just remember, for those of you that are brand new or starting your podcasting out, anything above this poster image link is what you're normally going to see, and you're only going to see 1 box. You're not going to see 4 or 5 like I have. You're going to see 1. But as you grow, PowerPress will allow you to grow to have category casting, use channel, and there's good reasons to use one or the other, and that's a whole show in itself.
So if you've published 4 things on that one post, how come I only see 1 video and 1 audio on your site?
Because there's a little trick here in the in here, I've got a selection that says do not display player and media link, so I can hide those other videos.
Got it.
So that allows me to have really all 4 of those media files going up. And again, it's 4 separate RSS feeds, because I got people that listen to watch on mobile, some that watch on the desktop. So I give them the option of subscribing multiple ways. For the video, the audio, there's only one. But by clicking that little button right there, that essentially hides the display player on the website.
And can you tell us a little bit about how you break those feeds off? I know with our own system here, I edit all my video in Final Cut, and then through like compressor settings, I can export 4 things at once. Is that similar to your is that what you're using?
I'm using a Premiere.
Okay.
And so basically that's what I do. When it sets up to do the batch, I have it programmed to do 4 different exports.
Now, Todd, what if somebody out there is listening and says, is there a website that explains all of this in layman's terms? Where would you send them to learn more about this in a written form?
I'd send them over to our Create site at create.blueberry.com. We have a full podcast catalog over there. There's actually a full manual that has basically every topic under the sun. And if you get confused, we have a help forum that our staff monitors about 18 hours out of the day, where you can come in and get help as well if you have a question. If you're a hosting or a premium stats customer, we actually have a separate contact form that you can use to get a little more priority response from the team. But our podcasting manual has almost all of this information that you're going to need to get set up. We also have demo videos as well embedded in the site.
Now, Todd, I'm a teacher. I'm new to podcasting, and I'm going to go to Google and I'm going to type in Blueberry, and I'm not going to find you because Blueberry is spelled without the E's. What is up with that?
Well, when you're trying to buy domains, guess what? You don't always get, the Blueberry domain, as you would imagine, is pretty popular with farmers. So when we started the company, when RawVoice started, our logo was Fresh Organic Media. Our logo has changed a little bit over the years, or at least our, basically our well, how we refer to the company is a little different. But Blueberry is just the site. That's what stuck, and it's got a lot of brand awareness. So that's why we've stuck with it all these years.
Todd, thank you so much for that amazing demonstration of PowerPress. One more time, the PowerPress plugin is free. It can be found on the WordPress repository, and there's several demonstrations over on TeacherCast that you can certainly check out. But definitely, what was that website? Was it create dot?
Just go to blueberry.com and click on the create link. That'll take you to everything.
Excellent. We'll have links on that over on educationalpodcasting.today. Todd, before I let you go, tell me a little bit about your podcasting career. You said that you have 1,000 shows for Geek News. Yeah. How did you get started with all this?
October of 2004. Well, there's some backstory, and I don't want to spend too much time. I know we're probably limited here a little bit, but I got hurt really bad in June of 2004. I was still active duty military at the time. And long story short, I was flying a desk instead of flying in an airplane. And the Navy doesn't like to see people sitting around. It can be bad for your career. And I was looking for work to do too. And I was at the time in one of those clamshell body casts. And, the boss said, hey, would you like to go to Waco, Texas and babysit airplanes? I said, sure. And so I left Hawaii, went to Waco, Texas and babysitting airplanes in like August. It's 100 degrees. I'm in this clamshell. I didn't want to be outside because it was 110 in the shade. And so I'm spending a lot of time with the AC full on in the hotel room, cruising the internet. And I hear about this. I'm reading Dave Weiner's website at scripting.com, and I hear about this thing called podcasting. And I listened to one of their shows, and man, boom, I got the bug. Within days, I produced my first show in a hotel room in Waco, Texas, with a LabTech headset. And from there, it just went crazy. I was probably one of the first 50 to 75 podcasters, and at the time, There was no services like Blueberry. You had to use shared hosting accounts. And within like 2 weeks, I'm buying hosting accounts just to stay ahead of the bandwidth being sucked down by this insurge. I mean, I went really from 0 listeners to 40 or 45,000 listeners in like 6, 7, 8 weeks. It was, I mean, wow, it really blew up. And I got to thinking, there's something here. And of course, I came home from Texas and told my wife about it, and she's like, "Oh my God, another thing you're going to do. You got 2 years, buddy, to make some money on this. So, or I'm going to, cut you off." And so, because it took time. So we started building the show, getting kind of up in the space, and then something very monumental happened December of 2004. I got an email from Wiley Publishing, said, "Would you like to write a book on podcasting?" After going back and forth, I finished that book in March of 2005. It was put on the street in June, I think early June of 2005. It sold the most number of books, or most number of copies of any single do-it-yourself guide that Wiley had ever published. Immediately went on an Amazon list, went on New York Times. So it got all this exposure, which obviously helped. Well, it helped and hurt the show. There's a whole story behind that. At the time, it was people were poo-pooing people make money in the space. So when I was told everyone that I got paid to write a book about podcasting, "Oh, you sold out," and I lost a portion of my audience from that, it was crazy. That happened on episode 69. But in July of 2005, I was contacted by GoDaddy and said, "Hey, we like what you're doing with your show. We'd like to sponsor your show." So to this day, GoDaddy is my primary sponsor of the show, responsible for keeping my lights on, my family fed, all the things that are going on. Of course, in the meantime, the monumental words were said by my GoDaddy rep in late, like August maybe of 2005. She said, "Hey, we've had great results. Do you know anyone else that would like to do advertising with us?" And I'm like, ding, there's a business here. And from that, RawVoice was born. And in my show, I did a call out on my show. I'm looking for a programmer. I'm looking for a web developer. I'm looking for a business management person. I'm looking for a lawyer. 9 people responded to that call out on my show. We did a phone call. By the time I got done with the phone call, talking about what we were going to do, how much they were going to have to invest, 5 people hung up. We gained another person. Ultimately, the 5 core people that are part of the business today, or 4 of the 5 that were part of the core business at that time, are still with the company today, and RawVoice was born. And from there, we did a couple of sites that didn't get a lot of traction. Then we launched Blueberry, then PowerPress, and now everything that we do in the podcasting space. Our stats are really where companies like ESPN, Moody Radio, big media companies use our podcast statistics to verify their data. So all this came from sitting in a little hotel room on I-35 outside of Waco, Texas, listening to a guy talk about podcasting, and me deciding to start a show. It's really a pretty incredible story, and there's a lot in between. But we've had a lot of fun doing it. Feels like we're still working in a startup mode. We're still small. Total company size is 9-10 total. We have an office in Columbus where 3 of our employees are at. 3 of the team members, I should say, really not employees. But we're a big family, and we have a podcasting base. We understand what it is to be a podcaster and the struggles that podcasters go through. And I live this every day. What's not known, I decided early on to, if I'm going to walk the walk and talk the talk, I have to do it from my show. Blueberry does not yet to this day pay me a salary. Now, that's probably going to change soon, but I've built and I've done what I've done here strictly through my show. So it's not because I was being supplemented by Blueberry, it's because I did it. And it's possible for a podcaster to build a business, live and survive. I live in Hawaii, for goodness sakes. You can do it. It takes a lot of hard work, but I got past that 2-year threshold with my wife, and here we are. And it's been a crazy ride. 1,021 episodes, 10 plus years of doing podcasting. Every Monday, Thursday night, just like the mailman, I deliver an episode.
Talking to Todd Cochrane here, the host of Geek News Central and also the New Media Show. Now, last week on our program, Educational Podcasting Day, I had your co-host, Rob Greenlee on. I asked him this question. I want to ask it to you. What makes a successful podcaster?
My audience is like family. It's very, matter of fact, you've got the screen narrowed, but on my screen back here on my system, it says Ohanasaurus, and Ohana in Hawaiian means family. You have to have a connection with the audience. You have to love them just as you would love a family member. You have to be passionate about what you do. They grow with you in this journey. They put up with my quirks, my late night recordings, my destruction of the English language. But in the end, what it really boils down to is I have a connection with my audience, and I'm in their ears, and I take that relationship very, very seriously and trying to do the best job I can every time I basically walk up to the microphone and understand that I'm in their head. And if you keep that in mind as you're creating your content and develop a relationship with your audience, your podcast will grow and go far.
I love that advice. I absolutely love that advice. The reason why Todd is on the show today is because he answered an email. Who am I? I wrote out to him and said, Todd, I love what you're doing. Would you be able to come on to the show today? And Todd's like, sure, whatever. Let's do it. And so I want to say thank you so much for your time. I'm obviously stopping you from being on the beaches of Hawaii. So,
as a business owner and as a podcaster, I don't get as much beach time as I wish I would. That's the challenge with having a business and having a podcaster. It takes a lot of work. And someone that's starting out, make yourself a plan, execute it. And just remember, people always get focused on the numbers. They're always worried about how many people are listening. Don't worry about that. Just have fun. Do the content, and the audience will come.
What's your advice on a show that has we use this word pod fade, which means, all right, I'm going to start a show, and then within, 8 episodes, it's done.
50% of shows fail within the first 7 episodes. They figure out it's hard work. And then by the time we lose another 50% of those people by the time they get to episode 25. And then usually the next point is 2 years. If they make it past 2 years, they usually can go a long time. Don't get discouraged. Just, I'll be honest with you, if I go back and listen to episode 1, I cringe. If I listen to episode 500, I cringe. If I listen to episode 800, I cringe. You grow. And it's a continual process, and the only way you get better is stepping up to the mic and doing the show.
I couldn't echo that more. In fact, one of the things that I always tell people is, I've done over 500 podcasts. The first 499 are horrible. Just keep listening to the next one. We're going to keep improving things. Even looking at the blog posts on TeacherCast, the show notes change from week to week because you're updating things, you're evolving things. And no matter who I talk to, Rob yesterday or Daniel or anybody that comes on the show, it's what do show notes look like? Everybody gives you a different idea. What does a podcast look like? Everybody gives you a different idea. What should your introduction be like?
There's no rules.
There's no rules. I love it. And so whether you're out there listening and you're a teacher that wants to start a show with your kids, maybe you just want to get out there and create something for mom and dad and grandma, go for it. If you want to step into your own studio, maybe grab a mic and a mixer and create your own show, go for it. What's the latest stat here, Todd? There's 500,000 podcasts on iTunes, or
I think the number's maybe about half that. And we'll actually be releasing a number. We have a pretty good idea what the ecospace looks like right now. I'm talking about that at the New Media Expo. But I think the important thing for people to take away is there are no rules. You can do what you want. And someone tries to tell you you have to do it this way, well, tell them, go their other way. Do what you want to do. Have fun. There are some things that you can build into your show for success, but I laugh at myself all the time doing my show and stupid mistakes I make, and I leave them in the podcast. I don't edit them out because we're human, and this is what this media is about. It's all about honesty, integrity, and again, your family knows how you are, so your audience should know how you are too.
It's so easy for new podcasters to go back and edit all the that are in their show.
I don't.
And I just sit there and go, listen to my first 10 or 15 episodes. They're really good. But then you just start to have conversations with people, and then I see personalities come back out. And I know a few people that watch this show I've done consulting with, and you can see this transformation between I'm afraid of the microphone to the microphone's not even there, we're having a conversation, or I'm just talking to myself, or let me throw this at you, but as we're wrapping up here, what's the one piece of advice that everybody asks for that you could give to help out the educational community on starting or maintaining their own podcast?
I've talked to a lot of educators over the years, and a lot of times they're hampered by resources. Budgets are tight. So as an educator, you can do this very inexpensively and free tools. I started my first show with a LabTech headset, from Walmart, $13.95. So you can do this with very low overhead. You can get started. Lots of free resources out there. Use them. And basically empower these kids and these young adults to create media, because they're going to be they're going to be able to tell the truth about what's happening in the world as we move forward, as the news continues to get skewed. So we need people out there willing to talk about things and topics and subjects and be creative. So just have fun with it, and don't be discouraged about a budget. You can do it with no budget.
Thank you. We asked the question a lot on this show, can you podcast for free? And
close.
If you, again, aside from purchasing the iPad or purchasing the computer, yes, you can talk into BossJock or an app on your iPhone. You can talk into the recorder. What do you have there? What is that?
That's an iPhone 6 Plus. You can use this.
Yeah, the call recorder app is great. I tell my teachers just to talk into Evernote, because it's got a great call feature, and then they plug that into iMovie or something, and they do things that way. You can do this stuff for free. I heard your show right before we came on here, and $60-$70 gets you a decent microphone that you can use. $50 gets you a mixer. I'm sitting here. I know, like what is this? This is a Behringer 802 mixer. I like to talk about this one. There's some cheap ones from Mackie that are out there. The mic that I'm using here is a ATR 2005.
I think the thing that we want to just, for teachers, if you're teaching students, especially K through 12, their tools are going to be limited at home, and we come from different socioeconomic statuses. Some kids will have stuff, some kids won't. Yep. The key is, I think, even as we get down into, if the kid has a computer at home or even a mobile device, he can create content. That's the beauty of it, and that's why things have changed. And podcasting was all about freedom and sticking it to the man before. Now it's not so much about sticking it to the man. It's more about let's be creative and do cool things. So I'm really excited about this new generation of content creators.
Todd, thank you so much. You are welcome to come back on the show anytime. And one last time, if we do have questions about PowerPress or podcasting, how can we get a hold of you?
If you want to reach me personally, you can email me at ceo@rawvoice.com. If you have questions on PowerPress and need support, please use our forums at forum.blueberry.com. A last option is definitely email us at support@blueberry.com. We may redirect you back to the forum site. That's because it's a free plugin. We have to be able to try to manage resources. So go to forum.blueberry.com first. And again, if you're not getting a response or you've got a headache and you're pulling your hair out, you can always email me directly at ceo@rawvoice.com, and I'll take care of you.
Rob, thank you so much for checking us out. We'll be right back with more from Educational Podcasting today.
National Podcast Day is September 30th. But what is National Podcast Day? It's pretty simple, and you can help spread the word. National Podcast Day is dedicated to promoting podcasting worldwide through public engagement. You may be asking, what can I do to get involved with National Podcast Day? It's easy. Head over to nationalpodcastday.com and check the suggestions. But ultimately, these options are endless. Remember, September 30th, nationalpodcastday.com, and let's start the conversation.